Hello, Mike. Thank you so much for stepping in. And we'll postpone Steve Ackoff, who had technical difficulties, as did we here getting on. So we'll have an informal conversation about Osawa's understanding of levels of judgment. Is that right? In Yin and Yang?
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about levels of judgment and how the human being develops these through these six levels. So my name is Mike Chen. I'm speaking to you from north central Hungary, where we are in the middle of a 500 or 1,000-year drought. And just 2 thunderstorms this past week broke the drought, and the garden seems to have recovered.
There is a guy, Milk, sorry. Yes, he is speaking. I think he is, right, he is speaking now. He's,
So as we're waiting for Steve to join us, I understand he's in Oregon this week, and so he's working with his family's computer that needs updating.
Right.
And so as we're waiting for Steve to join us, I understand Steve has been working in the field of macro and the conjunction of macro with Western medicine in a clinical setting in Germany, in Scandinavia, over the past 40 years. And so we've been here because he was bringing to us the fruit of all that work. And of course, we're approaching it from the Osawan standpoint. Has everyone in this group, we were around 20 people, have we all read Osawa, or do we know Osawa's work? Ginat says yes. How about everybody else? Let's see a show of hands.
Some of it.
Okay, I've got yeah, a lot of people seem to know Osawa. Very good. All right, so
not enough of it, sorry. I know a lot of Misha.
I'm here then today as we're waiting for Steve to deal with the technical issues about his joining the group. I'm here to reintroduce George Osawa to you. George Osawa was born at the end of the 19th century to an impoverished samurai family in Japan. The Japanese civilization was undergoing major stress. It had just emerged from a feudal type of isolation in the middle part of the 19th century. The Admiral Perry of the US Navy had demanded in the middle part of the 19th century that orders allow foreign trade, allow consulates and embassies to have a permanent status. And Japan found its way into the 20th century under that kind of stress. Osawa was born directly in this difficulty, and civilizationally, culturally, socially, and dietetically. This is the point that the modern day macro becomes very, very clear. You see that the diet is very important to the development, not only of the individual, but also to the development of the civilization. And Osawa's personal experience was that his mother had given up the traditional Japanese diet, a typical Japanese food, in favor of the Western, specifically eggs. They were doing a lot of eggs in the Japanese household, and people, of course, were not used to that, and the illness was rather widespread. In his own family, Osawa's father took off, just abandoned the family. There was Osawa and two siblings, and the mother remaining. The mother and one of the sisters became ill and expired. And Osawa was very much left to his own devices. He was crying by his mother's bedside as she was just in the last few days. And she also, she was from the samurai background herself, and really had to think, how was she going to leave the child to fend for himself? And she said to herself, there was only one way that she could do it. And to his blubbering there at her bedside, she said, she told him very sternly to stop it, you cockroach. Almost with her last breath, she had to muster that force to leave the presence of some sort of stamina, some sort of longevity to the child. And then she passed away. In time, Osawa himself developed tuberculosis. And he went to the Western, set up by edict of the emperor. The emperor had forbidden the use of traditional Japanese medicine and had directed all of the civilian population to use the Western style medicine. It didn't take long for the half-trained Western doctors, the Japanese doctors who had been halfway trained in Western medicine. Don't forget, this was the very beginning of Western medicine anyway. Western medicine, Ginat, where do you date Western medicine to begin?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know.
And anyone want to hazard a guess when Western medicine began in the West? The modern version of Western medicine.
Civil War?
Yeah, I was going to say around Second World War.
A little bit earlier, Alexis Carrel won the Nobel Prize for surgery for the invention of the suture that he had developed during the First World War on the battlefield as a French physician. I think when you look it up, you'll see that the Western medicine, the beginning of its modern iteration, if you will, is around 1870. That's the Franco-Prussian War. It's around that time. So Osawa, born 1893, if I'm remembering correctly. So just one generation after the beginning of the modern development of medicine. So this was still in its infancy. Western medicine still in its infancy when he developed tuberculosis in Japan in the early part of the 20th century. And the doctors weren't able to do anything for him. And they said that his case was incurable. And they sent him home to expire. He was, I think, not even 18 years old at the time. This is the basis of your macrobiotic practice, was how the boy, Osawa, was able to save himself and was able to thank the universe for saving him. Has anyone heard this story before? One person, right? So I think this is a good point for you to hear it for the first time. Just the way that that things work. He's carrying around this terminal diagnosis with him. This is as authentic of a diagnosis as you could get in the early part of the 20th century. You know, when your own healthcare system says incurable. Who, in this latter part of the 20th century and the early part of the 21st, who in macro has had that happen to them? Any names come to mind? People who have had a terminal diagnosis and then been able to cure themselves?
Yeah.
Anyone have any name?
Janet Pitt, for example. Yeah, there
Tell
are
us a little
some.
bit about Janet.
Janet Pitt is a nurse in, what's that state? Whatever the state is east of Michigan, Ohio, right? She was diagnosed with cancer, pretty much you name an organ. When she tells her story, it was here and here and here and here and here. I mean, it was throughout, it was in all the organs. And I remember her telling the story that her friends volunteered to help and that they would sign up on a paper and each one take a day or an hour or a time or whatever it is. And she said that she was able to get herself into the bathroom, sit on the toilet. She didn't have the strength to stand back up. And she used to sit in a chair and muster the strength to be able to get over to the stove to turn off the rice. I mean, that kind of condition. And she came back. And every year she takes out that whole group of friends for a celebration dinner.
This is the first time that you've heard this story. Does it sound at all familiar to anyone? Does macro, for you personally now, have that reputation? Or is this the first time that you've heard this type of story?
Hi. It's not.
Please.
It's not the
Yeah,
first time. It's not the first time. But I think lately we have been hearing more sad news about people connected with macrobiotics, especially senior teachers who have passed with serious illnesses. So I think macrobiotics has these both sides of full recovery, or maybe I don't know why those people developed these serious illnesses, but I think macrobiotics has also these both sides of health and sickness. So,
Very good. Anyone else?
Anna, I really love and appreciate that you bring up this topic because it's an important one. And I wonder how you or anyone envisions how should a macrobiotic death be? How should we pass on to the next world?
Well, in the macrobiotics, the word macrobiotics is connected with longevity, and with longevity with health. So theoretically, we should pass without illness, just because it is our time. Maybe by accident, or maybe just because we are old enough to go to the other life. But I really don't know. What I know is that long-term teachers, I think life is powerful, and life is always teaching us something. And I'm quite new in macrobiotics. I've been studying macrobiotics for 10 years now, and I'm still learning, of course. But in the beginning, my first feeling regarding macrobiotics was that there was a lot of arrogance within macrobiotic people, a kind of feeling that we have everything in control. So maybe life is trying to tell us something. I don't know. Because what I really love about macrobiotics is the philosophy and the approach to everything in life, including the balance in our diet. But I think I don't know, speaking for myself, I respect the natural food from different places. So food in Portugal, of course, is different from natural foods from Israel or from Japan or from the United States. So maybe there is something we can improve regarding natural foods from our ancestors, and not specific foods from Osawa's teachings, because he was a Japanese. He taught what he knew and what.
Well, let me
worked for
interrupt
him.
you. I'm really interested in this question of death, what it should look like, and particularly a macrobiotic death. You know, is there a should? Should we live until a particular number? Is there something wrong with us if we die younger, whatever that is? I'm curious to hear other ideas on this topic as well, if people have ideas, insights, thoughts.
I would like to say something. I think that only God knows when our expiration date is. And it doesn't matter how old, how young you are. When it's your time, it's your time. But I also believe that we should take care of our body as well as we can and do what we can. But there's the philosophy of the genetic component. There's the philosophy of how well you take care of yourself. And I think it all applies to people. So I don't think that there's an expiration date like, oh, this person didn't live to 90, or this person should have lived to
So
100.
is it sad, or is it a problem in some way if we were speaking about senior macrobiotic teachers, when they expire, is there a problem?
No, I mean, we never know how long we're going to live, and we just do the best we can. If most of us want to live as long as we can, and if you find macrobiotics that helps you, but does it help everybody? I don't know. I know it works for me and my family.
My mom passed away when she was a month short of 93, and she had been eating macrobiotically for the last 25 years of her life. And I really believe that she was ready to go. And she did pass very quietly. She stopped eating a lot, she stopped eating. She was eating very little. And I believe that we choose our time to die, other than accidents and things that happen to us that are out of our control. But that was my experience with my mom. And I can talk about Tony Sadlero. I don't know if any of you know who he is. He wrote the book Recalled by Life. And he cured himself with macrobiotics. He cured himself of cancer. He was a doctor in Philadelphia. And being a doctor, his mind, he couldn't grasp how simple it was to cure himself through diet, through macrobiotics. And he started experimenting with himself. He had been free of the cancer for years, and he was a speaker. He would go all over the country and talk about his experience. And then he started experimenting with himself again, with chicken and some dairy. And he got, I think it was kidney cancer in the end. And he saw Lino, actually. Lino was his last counselor. And he realized, that it really does work. And going off it, especially if you've had cancer, that it really makes a difference. So that was an interesting, I scribed during that consultation, his last consultation before he passed on. Mike, you're muted.
My wife just got back. I'm filling her in on Steve's technical difficulties.
Yeah.
I want to add that I had heard that Jacques Delangre in Los Angeles had, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Had started eating donuts and things to say, oh, it's fine, it's okay. And he died in a shorter period of time because he had changed his diet. He thought that wouldn't hurt him. Oh, it's okay. Do you know Jacques Delangre?
I don't.
Okay, he wrote, I have a book of his about doing. He's very into that. Anyway, he lived in the heart of Los Angeles. And on the other side, my mother had varicose veins and she was set up to have surgery to remove them. She found macrobiotics. She went on it. She returned to the doctor's office. The doctor was furious with her. Why are you wasting my time? You don't have varicose veins. Get out of my office. And my mother stuck with it from then on.
So I wonder if we are making death bad or wrong, or the person is wrong, they did something wrong, they ate the wrong thing. I don't know. I just have been thinking about these questions.
That's a perfect question, Ginat, because we need to admit that macrobiotics is supposed to be a way of eating and living that will in some way grant us health or longevity or whatever. And so if something fails, life knows why, and life knows when we need to die. But if we are practicing this way of eating and living, that we say to others, that is a very good way to have health, And if we don't build our own health, I think it is important to try to understand why, without judgment. I think that is also important to try to understand with each other. It's not a mistake, it's an experience. It's
Because you
learning.
use the word fail, and also the concept of longevity. And as we're speaking, I'm thinking maybe longevity, the quantity, is not the goal. Maybe for me, for example, the goal would be that the time that I have, that I can really enjoy life. And when it's over, it's over. And it's not a question of how much, it's a question of the quality. Seems
Yeah.
pretty simple when I say it that way.
Ginat, can I say something? This is
Hi,
Nava.
Nava.
Hi. I think and I feel that there is a relationship between the self and the immune system. And the relationship between the self and the immune system is experiencing itself on different fields. It can be food, like if you have a car and you treat it well, so the car, you can use it for many years. So this is what I see in macrobiotic. But there are other levels of trust between the immune system and the self. And these are more emotional fields. The will, how much my will is clear and honest, how much my emotions are clear and honest, and the immune system is affected by that. Not everything is affected. It's not only what comes from outside into me. It's what I project, what is my character, that's how I feel. And we need to work on balancing that as well.
It's also your ancestry. I mean,
Yeah.
The environment, where you come from, so many factors, not only about food.
Yes.
Actually, can I say something? Hello, everyone, by the way. I feel that, things are kind of mapped out to a degree. And, how some people are really drawn to healthy eating. I mean, I really wanted to eat healthily and I couldn't for a while. It just wasn't happening. And when I was ready, things I was drawn to, and I didn't think I would ever be able to give up what I used to eat. Felt so much better. And then you tell some people follow it, some people do not want to know. So it's almost like a magnet will draw you to whatever you need. So your quality of life and the length of your life is all, I believe, is all meant to be. It's this kind of a script, whether it's a loose script. And like I think Ginat was saying, it's not always the quantity of your life, it's the quality of it. Because, if you think of your life without, eating like macrobiotic foods, I'm sure for many of us, it wouldn't be as good as it is. But there's a reason we're drawn to it. And some people think it really, oh my gosh, it could so help them, and they just will not do it. As they say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So, yeah. Don't know if anybody else agrees with that or not.
Yeah, hi, it's Michelle. I'll say something. Hi, everyone. Yes, we're waiting for Steve. But anyway, this is interesting. Yeah, I would have to say what I thought of when we're talking about life and death is that, I heard the expression, this is a temporary gig. So, and this is not a dress rehearsal. So, make every day count. But from me becoming more macro, I know that, I don't think we die. We continuously live on through our writing, through the good deeds we do, because we're all energy, right? And the energy continues. Even if our flesh isn't here, we have done good things that continue the energy. So yeah, I mean, I'm not that concerned about life and death anymore now that well, actually today I'm very yang, so I'm maybe a little more concerned, but generally when I'm doing my brown right, like having a whole grain every day, I'm in such inner peace, which I haven't done in like a week. So you're not hearing it today, but I'm in such inner peace that I can take more risks. So if I die that day, at least I didn't die not trying. So I don't know if I'm making any sense because I'm again too yang today. Thank you. I'm glad to have contributed.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say, Michelle, but and yeah, that's another thing actually, is that whatever stage you get to in this life, you do carry it forward. So you can't, it's not like you're thinking, oh God, I've wasted all my time, doing this, I could have eaten this, whatever. But yeah, you do. I do believe that.
Yeah, and I didn't have children. I have cats that are my kids, but they died before me. But kids go on. Yeah, they're part of you, right? So, and the acts we do. I like, I heard throwing a pebble has a ripple effect. So, yeah, and hopefully, you're not doing anything destructive with the pebble. Just saying.
Anyone else, or shall we go back to Mike?
Yeah, I love hearing about what Mike's saying about, I can't even say his name, but I've been meaning to read, because he wrote something interesting on marijuana smoking, which is very yin. And I'm like, oh, interesting. I know a lot of potheads. So they're taking care of themselves through marijuana use. It was very interesting what Osawa said.
I'd like to say a little something. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hi. I just want to say that from my beginnings of learning about macrobiotics, probably 40 years ago, I've always taken away from it that it's such a gift to empower the individual to learn about themselves and to see how they are affected by their daily activity and their diet, and to use a realm of foods that is whole and high quality and has vitality, whether it's from your garden or just the best choices that you can make. And I think that it brings to us a sense of responsibility for our health. And that is the essence of it that is so different from the Western medicine, that we actually can develop our intuition and begin to understand, where are we, what are our low points, and what would strengthen our health. And it's very available, I think. And it's easy for modern people to see, well, this person was macrobiotic and they're arrogant or they died. And all people do die. It's completely natural and normal, and people are arrogant. And actually, that's not the fault of macrobiotics. And when we look at older teachers, I guess I've never really felt like, oh, why did they die? They were macrobiotic. I never saw it that way. I just saw it that, they got into a place with their health where they maybe began to fall under certain forces or stresses. And I just don't think it has to do with being a long-term macrobiotic. And I know my health has gone in different directions depending on what's happening in my life and how clearly I can resonate with taking care of myself. So I just want to encourage people to not have that point of view of what has someone done wrong, and just to develop our intuition. And I like it, like every morning I try to say, well, what do I need to do today to find balance and accomplish what's important to me? And that changes every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mike, do you
Hello?
want to bring us back? Mike?
Hello, hello,
Oh, hello.
hello, hello, Ginat. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Hi, Carl. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody, or whatever time it is at your place. I also would like to add to this very intriguing discussion that I, as somebody who worked for over 20 years at the Cush Institute of Europe, have been many times exposed to as one of the teachers and staff. And I had a great opportunity to actually think about it, because I have seen over the last decade a few very dear, some of them very close macrobiotic teachers or students who passed away, including Michio Kushi and his wife. And because this is very impulsive, I didn't have time to really put it all in a nice follow-up. But I wanted to share with you a few things that I have realized in the last 20 years, that I have actually heard this question 1,000 times. And I had to sometimes answer it to people who thought that this is actually a reason why they should doubt macrobiotics. We are all like snowflakes. That means you cannot find identical me or you anywhere else in the world. And we all start our journey with the different bank accounts, meaning we all have different strengths, talents. And so maybe we are mistaken when we think that we are physical bodies. We are something much more. And physical body is, of course, an important tool we use every day. And its strength and its hereditary strength determines a lot. But it's not the only thing, and I think Steve will talk about it, whether it is the microbiome or the mitochondria or our spiritual alignment. What I have seen in the last many years is that maybe we make mistake when we consider as a most important factor of quality of our life, the length that our life has achieved. Maybe if we would realize that we are not only bodies, but we are something much more, maybe another way to look at our life is, did we fulfill our dream? Or how many people's lives did we touch or influence in a positive way? Rather than thinking how many years can I cross on my list. What I have also seen with great people who passed away, and we may think they passed away prematurely, is that they very much lived to the realization that that we are 100% responsible for literally everything. Each of one is 100% responsible for everything that is happening in the world. Meaning it's not our fault that there is a war in Ukraine, or that there is the big pharma takes over the society. It means we are all capable to do something about it. And all of these great teachers who passed away maybe earlier than we would think, they had a great compassion and great heart. And they often went not one, but sometimes 10 steps further in trying to make a change in society, in trying to leave the world a better place for the future generations. They had to deal with extremely artificial circumstances. And I don't talk about only that they have been traveling the globe to teach. They have been teaching late night, late hours, because otherwise people would not come to their classes. They had to compromise on their cooking. And yes, it's great to hide yourself somewhere in a beautiful forest and live just on yourself. But when you try to make a difference and you go into the dirty cities, which are full of toxic air and toxic mental patterns, then sometimes you have to compromise. a lot of these teachers who were traveling, they also were not able to cook for themselves. They have been depending on somebody cooking for them, and their understanding of how much salt should be put into their food or how to prepare the vegetables. And that, of course, also contributes to kind of, making it more difficult to find your own balance or equilibrium. And so it's true, life is much greater than we can comprehend with our small minds. And I'm a great fan of the teaching of many wise teachers. And one of them is also Wim Hof, the Iceman. And Wim Hof says one very beautiful sentence, and that is that the cold is merciless but a just teacher. And so is the nature. We cannot fool nature. Nature doesn't play how many universities or diplomas we have and how many people we helped. Nature plays on a level of balance of plus and minus. And it's true that each and every one of us learns and keeps learning till his very final breath. And we all make mistakes. We make small mistakes, we make big mistakes. And the big challenge of great teachers and people who have been practicing macrobiotic for a long time with utmost sincerity is that we sometimes know so many good things, how to balance the small things that we do wrong, that we can that way postpone the negative effects, sometimes with even decades. But then when they hit us hard, they may hit us at the moment when we least expect it, and they can become fatal for us. I speak of my own experience, and actually it's only this year that despite of my 30+ year practicing macrobiotics, that I actually understood how essential it is that we need to sleep 8 hours a night. And if we don't do that, we may compromise, among other things, also our microbiome and other things which are invisible to the eye, but which are very important for our health. So wrapping it up, I think that there is so much more that should be taken in consideration, and I would very much like to encourage everybody who is puzzled, how come this great teacher still died of cancer? Then I would think, first look at what the teacher did, how many books he wrote, how many nights he spent sleepless trying to break his head in creating a world of peace, thinking far further than only his own home or garden, only his own body, and realize that none of us, even we have thousands and thousands of people on our account that we have helped, none of us is excluded from the law of nature, from the law of order of universe. And finally, it's all about balance. And if that balance has been for many years, even if it was for good deeds, for pure intentions to help others or to create a world of peace, if simply our bank account has been exploited in a service of the humanity, then maybe we are called to serve this world on another level. And I would leave it here with this. Thank you very much.
I just want to let it clear that I didn't say that these people died prematurely, because like someone said, only life knows. I was talking about health and illness, because that's the main message regarding macrobiotics. It's a dialogue between health and illness. And of course, we all do things better and sometimes worse, and life, it is a learning process. Thank you.
Denny Waxman has a saying that you wake up every morning and you choose the direction you want to go in, towards health or sickness. And he said that many years ago, and I think that's so profound. And I guess it's just life is a process. Like Carol said, you know, it's a process. So every day we get to choose. And we're born, you know, we're born with our own conditions. And we live into them, we eat into them. So another thing that you said, Carol, that, you know, you know what your condition is, and you know what you're doing to either go in the direction of health or sickness.
So because of this conversation, I'm asking myself if I want to continue to think about macrobiotics as a compendium from health to illness, wellness to illness, that maybe that's not what my focus wants to be. Again, rather it's the quality of each day, rather than am I healthy, am I sick?
I completely agree with you, Ginat. I think it is our well-being, not health or sickness. And macrobiotics gave me an awareness of the cycles of life. It helped me a lot to deal with difficulties of daily life, of working, struggling to produce work, to earn money, all those stress things, and macrobiotics was really helpful. So I'm with you regarding that. Thank you.
I would still like to add one thing, and that is actually that longevity is not necessarily the only goal of macrobiotics. It's a possible outcome. And I see a lot of similarity with macrobiotics and yoga actually means union. That means uniting ourselves with the source of creation. In macrobiotics, we say, or I say in my classes, that macrobiotics is a universal way how to experience yourself as the great life, not as the small life that is hidden in the small body, but as the great life. That means being connected with everything and everyone around you, and not only for a moment, but throughout the day. And that's a pretty big piece of cake to achieve. And in that sense, the question is, what is true health? Is true health having a healthy, functioning physical body, or is true health having a very strong, developed spiritual connection? And if we look at history, even people like Buddha or so, they passed away because their physical bodies failed, or because they got poisoned, whatever the story is. It is really purpose of life to maintain the physical body healthy at any price. That's a question that I haven't answered for myself 100%. Thank you.
Can we show us Mung bean, please?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Maria's just arrived. I filled her in on the situation with Steve in Oregon, and we're showing you here the latest development in our household.
As far as life and
As far as,
longevity.
here is the
Mung bean of 2 days.
These are 2-day mung bean sprouts at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is marvelous to see the life that comes out of the mung beans.
Just hold here. I'm going to give
In
you a
2
few.
days.
Just hold them up to the camera.
And they are, I don't know how to show, but there are
You have to show it up
many
here.
ways to cook it. Okay.
Up, 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 up.
Oh,
Stand up. There you are.
okay.
And just put your hands there. There. There you go. Like that. Can everyone see that?
Can anybody see that? It just so nice. But the dish is better.
The dish is better.
Yes.
Move
These
your
are-
hand to the left.
These are really a marvel.
Yeah.
Just-
In 2 days.
Just 2 days, what a little mung bean will do.
Yes.
And I was introduced to mung beans as in a soup. You make a mung bean soup.
And Alice did show the pancake.
Alice Faba in Canada, she showed pancakes
With brown rice
with brown rice.
and mung beans.
And we're making mung beans here.
The stir.
This is the great life here, as you can see, just sprouting like this. This is indicative of the great life, believe it or not. You see, when you take a little mung bean, put a little water in there, let it soak, and all of a sudden it erupts
It comes
like
out.
that. And then you take this
You can eat it as it is.
and you can just take it, with the shell on or off, whatever. I take the shell off.
And eat it.
And I'm eating the great life.
Yes. Yes.
Like that.
Yes. And so there were a few mung beans because we couldn't take off the shell off all of it before making the stir, and I just took it outside into the garden, and then
We
next day,
as a section of the flower and herb garden that
And
was
then-
not being used, Maria said, okay, I'm just going to take the excess mung bean shells and whatever other sprouts are there and pour them in.
yes, and because
Lo and behold,
we find it about so expensive if you get it at the store. I mean, it is boggles. So we said, okay, we find out how is the best way to put it into the garden. And springtime, we are about to grow our mung beans.
grow our mung beans.
Yes.
So this is a remarkable, we bring this to your attention because by itself, it's just a marvel. You go into an Oriental grocery, you'll find soybean sprouts sitting there in big bins, and you'll find mung bean sprouts sitting there in big bins. But this is really remarkable. You do them at home, you sprout them for yourself, you eat them either just the way that they are, or you can saute them, you can put them in soup, whatever you like, and it's eating the big life for yourself.
And it is so good, it must be good for you. And in this very same channel.
Now, wait, hold on. In saying this, insofar as normalizing your own condition, because this is what Carol is talking about. You normalize, you may normalize a little bit to the yin side, you may normalize a little bit to the yang side, but you're trying every day to, Erica mentioned, right? You are normalizing yourself. You're trying to bring yourself back into a sense of balance, right? And you can either do it on a little bit of a yin side, you can do it a little bit of a yang side. It's not a problem, because if you normalize yourself to the yang side one day, the next day you can do it to the yin side. Or if you do it on the inside, then you can do it on the yang side.
But
Okay, now you can say.
Remember, Herman Ihara said, you can do that, but you cannot balance chemicals. That's why we have to be very, very careful about clean food, which we know doesn't contain those poisonous chemicals, because the body cannot balance it. We cannot make it with the yin-yang methods. That's what Herman said. And in this very same channel, we had a presentation about superfoods. You can find it among these marvelous presenters. And our Asian young friend, she said that mung bean is a superfood.
For her, it was
For her,
superfood.
among the superfoods.
Mhm.
It's one that. Mhm.
And we're finding
Mike-
it out for ourselves.
Mike, what did Osawa say about marijuana?
First
Other
of
than-
all, for our group here, how do they class Mary Jane? Is it considered to be yin? Does our group consider it to be yin? Does our group consider it to be yang?
I think it's both.
Yin and yang
Because-
together.
Yes.
All right, but is it predominantly one or is it predominantly the other or not?
Well, it has to be according to Osawa.
Yeah, yeah, and to yourself. You say for yourself, I feel unstable when I'm around a group that has all of this smoke emanating. Is that what I would consider to be a yin condition or a yang condition? Yeah, and you come to a judgment, which is what we're talking about here, the development of judgment through your macrobiotic practice. So what is your judgment about being around a group that has all of this smoky air? Do you consider it to be a yin or a yang phenomenon?
I consider to be yin
Okay, there's one vote for yin,
or more yin.
more yin. That's it.
But the smoke
It's
is to
smoke.
be yang because it's drying.
It can be yang because it's drying. Now, so your question is it more yang because it's drying or is it more yin because it's destabilizing? That's very particularly now your own judgment that you need to call into play. Very good. Excellent. We'll come back to you after we go through the group.
Yeah. And why do we use it as a medicine?
Yeah, that's another question. Anyone else? Anyone else have a judgment?
I would
As
say
to-
it's more yin because you feel spacey.
Okay, that's destabilizing. So that's 2 votes for yin.
And you don't feel very grounded. So for me, I would think yin.
That's it. Very good. You see how you develop your judgment like that. Let's continue. Who else? You not? What do you say?
My experience, no, I never inhaled, is that it has a yin influence, that it's dispersing and expansive, and I
Very good.
rise above. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
yin.
So that's 3 for the yin. Karel?
Based on my experience, I have, for study purposes, decided to once smoke a piece of marijuana under guidance of a good friend who's been a heavy smoker who smoked it for many years. I apparently was too young, so I didn't experience anything. But I know also the book from Herman, from George Osawa, Smoking, Marijuana, and Drugs. So I think humbly it's yin. It's not so strong as other drugs, but it's yin, and it also actually causes permanent damage to the brain, especially when it has been used for a long time.
Think about that. It has permanent effect on the nervous system. Wow. And that's a big turn of the key if you for your personal judgment, folks. For your personal judgment. Okay, Erica, we're coming back to you. Let's hear your determination.
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. But I think in a person's condition, it can make someone's condition more yang or more yin.
Okay, that's
Because
excellent.
I know someone with asthma and
Yeah.
she smokes.
Yeah,
You know, she even uses a water pipe, so
Yeah.
it's more yin.
yeah, very good, very good.
But I think it's more drying
Yeah,
for
excellent.
her.
Excellent judgment. So folks, you see how it is that when you ask yourself to make these analyses of yinness or yangness, you are developing a stronger mentality each time you do this exercise, just the way that we just did right now. Every time that you do it, you are strengthening your discriminatory facility or faculty, you see. And I tell you the story from Maihara. He left Japan for the US, and he was arguably the best Japanese student of Osawa up until that point at the Maison Ignoramus, the ignoramus school in Japan. He was the best student. He was able to become cured of his nervous breakdown in less than a month. Not through the diet, not through sleep, just listening to Osawa's presentations on the big life, the macrobiome.
Yeah.
The macrobiome. Just listening to that, all of a sudden he came to the understanding that your little life is one thing and your big life is something else. Yeah, so anyway, he was sent to the US. Osawa said, go and join Michio and Aveline on the East Coast of the US. But this was the instruction that Osawa gave him. Osawa said, in everything that you do, find the yin and the yang. Find the yin and the yang in everything that you encounter. That was his practice going forward.
And what he said was, when
Speak to the camera.
When he was asked about the blue-green algae, when it came about, and everybody was praising how wonderful things it does, and he said, well, you find it out yourself. You want to be a guinea pig? Do it. But it is too yin. That's
for his money.
For his experience.
Yeah.
So, but be a guinea pig, find it out for yourself.
Be a guinea pig for yourself, you see, if you want to try. A lot of folks will do that. And they're perfectly free, and we all applaud them. You say, go and try it out for yourself. How do we call that in macro? Go and try it out for yourself. We have a 2-word Latin expression. Go and try it for yourself. Anyone?
Non credo.
Non credo. I don't believe anybody else's experience. I don't believe anybody else. I'm going to find it out my own way, my own time. And thank you very much, for your input like that. And Osawa shortened all of that exhortation to a 2-word Latin phrase picked up from the Stoic Seneca.
Non credo.
Non credo. Beautiful, beautiful. And this is one of the fundamental expressions of macro. We can talk about the big life. We can talk about balancing our yin and our yang. We can talk about developing our judgment, all of that. But one of the fundamental aspects is non-credo. I'm finding it out for myself, folks. I'm not finding it out on behalf of somebody else. I'm not finding out on behalf of my pets. I'm finding it out for me. And that's what we're all saying. Has everyone run into this expression before? Let's put it this way. Who has not heard of non-credo in macro before? One, I see. There are other people who are not yet on the screen. All right, so non-credo, write it down for yourself. N-O-N, and the second word, C-R-E-D-O, credo, non-credo. I don't believe. Who was it who said that? It's beautiful. Comments from anyone?
Yeah, I have one comment that I like to share. And that is one thing that we should always, as students of macrobiotics, remember is that when we read some answer or statement from a wise teacher to somebody, we should always take that advice in context of that situation. That means we should always consider to whom the answer was given. Was that person overly yin? Was he overly yang? And for that purpose, it only confirms what you just said, non credo, because one thing can be medicine for somebody, but it can be poison for me. And in that sense, there is no universal answer applicable for anybody. We all should find out for ourselves. And there, I always also say, but non credo doesn't mean do not believe, but do not disbelieve either. Have the sincere honesty that if somebody says, I would give my head on chopping block that this works, then you will do everything possible to find out that it really works. And if you cannot prove that it works, then go back to the source and say, hey, what's wrong? I did it, it doesn't work. Because sometimes we fail to take in consideration all factors that actually play a role in proving something.
That's very good. What is the number one factor in considering if a certain modality works or not? What is the number one factor? Is what we call quality. Is the substance of a sufficient quality to have a positive impact on me or not? Are the sprouts properly soaked? Did they have enough water? Was the water properly changed? And did the sprouts come out properly? You see. So the first item is, make sure of the quality. In macro, we say the second item is equally important. Am I having too much of it, or am I having too little of it? Quantity is also an issue. So you can be eating the best food, but if you're having too much of it, it may have an opposite effect. If you're not chewing it properly, it may have an opposite effect. So the two factors, quality and quantity. Have you all run into that? Yeah, okay. You should be hearing that in your macro instruction, in your fundamental macro instruction. You should be hearing, be careful about your quality and be equally careful about your quantity. If we're saying here tonight, anything that you have not yet heard from your macro instructors, you need to go back to them and say, listen, this is what I heard on Ginat's channel the other day. I'd like to hear your view on it. Ginat, comments?
I think you've done a masterful job, Mike. You've stepped up. This is a true macrobiotic person for me, that you can just like that, you can say, okay, I can do this. And you just take it away and you lead it so nicely in a Socratic method, asking our opinions, have we heard, have we experienced? It was so nicely done, Michael. I really appreciate it and thank you.
Well, you give me the opportunity to touch base again and again and again with George Osawa, who had to go through his tuberculosis as an 18-year-old, given up for lost by his rudimentary healthcare system in Japan at the early part of the 20th century. By the grace of heaven, by the will of the infinite, found his way to a used bookstore with this wooden box filled with 25 yen books. For a nickel, you could just pick up a book. And he found a book lying there from a generation before, a generation plus, almost 2 generations before, written by an army doctor named Ishizuka, how to cure yourself by readopting a primitive diet that the Japanese had followed from time immemorial. And Osawa had nothing better to do with his time at that point. He sat down, he had brown rice, he had miso soup, and he had a little bit of a pickle. And that was enough for him to normalize his condition. There wasn't a lot of fuss, there wasn't a lot of bother. It was just rice, miso soup, and a little bit of pickle. And he was able to regain his functionality just like that. And so Ginat says, Mike, have you got anything that you could share with you? Well, yes, I do. This is where we come from. This experience of Osawa as an 18-year-old, having lost his mother, his sister, and his father had taken off, all of a sudden left to his own devices, Infinite stepped in and said, this is the way that you can do it, if you want to. And Osawa replied, as cool as a cucumber, I haven't got anything better to do. I can sit there and chew my brown rice and give thanks. I can have a sip of miso soup and be thankful. And lo and behold, he was able to cure. And what did he do after that? Can I give the punchline, Gina?
Yes, please.
What did he do after that? After he cured himself, he took a vow in thanks, to show his appreciation to infinite. As a human being, this is one of the most dramatic things that you can do. You undertake a vow.
Uh-oh, Mike, I might have muted you. Yikes. Mike, check and see if I just muted you by mistake. Yeah.
Okay, there I am. So the punchline that Ginat says, please come up with. Ginat, here's the punchline. The young man undertook a vow. This is the strongest thing that you as a human being could do insofar as the ancient Greeks are concerned. Be very careful, the ancient Greeks said, undertaking a vow. And he undertook a vow to save 3 million existences. Saved 3 million existences. He was so happy and filled with such gratitude that he had been able to do what he did, cure himself of the tuberculosis, that he undertook a vow to save 3 million existences. That's why we're here today.
Yeah. And our friend Chen Say, who made the best.
Speak to the camera.
Oh, yes. Our friend Junsen, who made the best umboshi plum in California, he made a vow to become macro because Osawa saved his brother's life. That was his commitment to macrobiotics.
If you were living in California 30, 40 years ago, you were macro, you were having Junsei's umboshi plums. Mm-hmm. And you were using Junsei's umboshi plums for healing. Unbelievable, unbelievable. And this is where we all derive. We're all deriving from that same impulse. Ginat derives from that same impulse, the sisters and brothers like that. And just we're on that road. And yes, it's something that we distributed among the the Western civilization. And now, as we heard again from one of Ginat's lecturers a few weeks ago, macro is now getting back to Japan through these celebrities, through the Hollywood and the performing arts celebrities. People, you know, when you go to Japan and you're performing in a rock band or as a singer or as a movie star, whatever, and people say, what do you eat? No, I actually eat macro, and it comes from Japan. And the folks say, really? Is that what's going on? And he says, yeah, absolutely the case. And now people are actually being reintroduced. We, all of us, are reintroducing macro back to Japan. Think about that. Think about
Breast
that.
meat seized.
Next year, watch and see. Ginat's going to give one of her presentations based out of Tokyo.
Wait for it. So, Michael, what do you think? I think we've done a masterful job.
It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed connecting with all of you here, and really, you know, what Osawa said to Ihara really applies. Find the yin and yang in everything. You'll improve your judgment going forward every day, every day.
Great.